Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NextGen Planners podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm the head of community experience here at NextGen Planners. And today, I'm delighted to be joined actually from the UK by someone for a change. We've done a lot of American podcasts recently, and we're joined by Mr. Ryan May. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I'm good, thanks, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. For anyone who is listening, they won't see uh, but people on YouTube obviously will be able to see that Ryan is wearing some next gen merch as well. So yeah, we're repping today. We're both wearing them as well. We're proper merch buddies here. This is ridiculous. I think we couldn't see this maybe 4 or 5 years ago when things were getting started. Absolutely not. So for anyone who doesn't know Ryan, he's a financial planner, and I've described him as an intrapreneur. And intrapreneur, by the way, is not me just pronouncing entrepreneur wrong. It's a kind of new word that's come to the surface a bit in the last few years. And you may have already heard that term as well, but Ryan is definitely an intrapreneur. And he's also a NextGen member, and he is based in Plymouth, which is right at the very, very bottom of England. And I'm right at the very top. So we might as well be in different countries. So Ryan, as we ask everyone to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you get up to on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I'm a financial planner. I work for a firm called Sound Financial Management. I'm an employed advisor there. So on a daily basis, I do have my own client banks, looking after existing clients of Sound, where maybe the directors have passed them over and I've inherited them gradually. And also I'm able to self-generate work and new clients myself, network, etc. Day to day, it's either in the office, at home, or seeing clients. So sort of your typical financial planner role. And then outside of work, it's very much I'm a dad to two princesses. They've got me wrapped around their finger. I've also got my fiance, and I try and squeeze in the odd round of golf here and there. So that's me.
The typical financial planner lifestyle, isn't it? Sounds good.
Yeah,
It's nice.
ticking a lot of
And
boxes there. So
yeah. So you entered the profession when was it? Was it like maybe
yeah, 2017.
so yeah, about 5 years
5 years.
ago?
Yeah.
And you entered it through a career change, and you were originally, I mean, your profession originally was law. I think you've got, is it a law degree you've got as well? Is
No,
it
I've got a history degree.
a
Yeah.
history
So
degree?
yeah, I
Yeah.
like to change it up.
That's certainly true. So I guess financial planning is known as a good career for second careerists. Like
Yeah.
it's known as a good, it's known as an open career change option for a lot of people. A lot of people who are financial planners have been in a career beforehand, or maybe have come to it later in life and things like that, which shows that it is a good career profession to change into.
Yeah.
I'm just interested from your like, how did you find that career change? Was there anything that really stood out for you? Did you find it easy, hard? Like, how was that changeover?
Yeah, like how it came to be effectively was that I was yeah, as you mentioned, I was working in law for about 7 years. I'd worked for various law firms. So like I worked for like an international law firm based in Plymouth. I'd worked for local firms that were quite small as well. And eventually during that sort of journey, I came to sort of specialize effectively in wills and lasting powers of attorney. A lot of private client stuff. So great experience there. And a lot of work that was referred to us by financial advisors. So slowly enough, there was a couple of times where the advisors would come in and say, like, we would like to keep referring work to each other. So here's some stuff about us, and here's how to identify opportunities for us as financial advisors. And here's a bit of information in terms of what we do. Sometimes we've done joint meetings, etc., like that as well. So it got to the point where I started thinking to myself, I'm interested in the wills and lasting powers of attorney, but I'm quite interested in what you're talking about as well. And then as well, like personally, I was at that time where my eldest was just born. So she was about 2 months old. So obviously in the forefront of your mind, it's like, right, I want to build a family, I want to support the family, etc. like that. And I think it's fair to say as well that when I was looking at the financial advisors and seeing the sort of the fees they were charging and the money that they were making, and more importantly, the reoccurring income and the service that they had, where they could effectively wake up at the 1st of January and they already had a client bank there to service and money coming in, providing they looked after the clients. Whereas, as we all know, law is a bit more transactional. So that, for me as an individual, sort of, I came about thinking, I think this might be a better career choice, and I'm interested in it as well, which was a great thing.
Yeah. And exams and stuff like that, they're kind of known as the biggest barrier to entry for a lot of people, both in terms of sometimes their complexity, sometimes their how can I put this, their interest levels. I'm trying to find a nice way to say that basically some of the exams are a bit dull, and also the cost of them as well. Like there's a lot of kind of ways that stop people getting into a profession. How did you kind of get over those barriers to entry? And I guess more kind of the difficulty of the exams and stuff like that.
I can see it from both sides, really, because as mentioned earlier, I was a history grad, so I was used to sort of doing academic stuff. But saying that at the same time, like I went 7 years virtually without doing any exams. I did do one law exam. That was just sort of an introductory sort of exam. So I'd gone 7 years without doing any exams. So that was a barrier in itself to try and overcome, to get back in the mode of revising, and more importantly, getting back into the mode of revising with a family. So that was interesting, and a renovation on top of that. So, not to make it easy, or hard, but I think as well, in terms of the costs, I was lucky enough that my employer sponsored a lot of that, and I know that a lot of employers do that out there as well. I know also that the CII, that was the professional body that I went through, was able to provide help to individuals that weren't getting help by their employers as well. So I think that's always a useful. I don't know if they still do that, but I know a lot of the local institutes did have sort of funding for that. And then just in terms of, as you said, the knowledge and the dryness at times, there are certainly some of those exams which can be very dry. And, when you're there at 8:30 in the evening after having done a full days of work and just put the kids to bed, it's very, very difficult sometimes to get your head around or get interested in top slicing or something like that. So I think it was just a case for me, the motivator was that I wanted my driving license effectively. And that was my motivator. I wanted to be able to go out and see clients, bring in my own clients, give advice, etc. like that. And I couldn't do that without the diploma. So the diploma was very easy to get through in that regards, because we were fortunate that although we were doing a renovation, had a family, we were living with my in-laws. And so we had a lot of support there in terms of just generally the day-to-day stuff, making tea, doing washing. That was sort of done for me. And that afforded me to be able to go upstairs in the loft, hide away for an hour every single night pretty much, and just crack on. So I was very fortunate at times, but I can also see for individuals entering the profession, and it can be quite daunting. But the great thing is that it's one of those things where it can be quite flexible. There's no time limit on it either, unless your employer imposes a time limit. I think it's great that there's that flexibility. So it's sort of a pay-as-you-go sort of thing.
Yeah, it's I think as well, a lot of people say when I ask that question, to be honest, I'm interested as well. I'm actively trying to use profession instead of the word industry a lot when we talk about financial planning. I think you do as well. I think a lot of people in our community do. I'm not sure if people would think we're quite at a profession level yet. I think we are. There's different opinions out there on whether we are or not. But law is a definite profession. You can do it at university. It is just considered a profession. So what do you think that financial planning can learn from law that might perhaps put us on the same footing, or also make us a profession as well?
Yeah, you're completely right. And I was only thinking about this the other day, really. As you said, I would definitely consider this as a profession. You look at all the chartered individuals out there, the certified financial planners out there. These levels are high levels of knowledge, and as well, there's people are appreciating that it's a service now. It's a relationship. As opposed to sort of say pre-retail distribution review, where you didn't need those qualifications, and it was all commission sort of based. So we can completely appreciate where things have come from, in terms of why clients sort of thought to themselves that we may not be a profession. I entered law wanting to go into law because I liked the kudos of that initially. You know, it was a profession. It's always been seen as a profession for a very, very long time, sort of hundreds of years effectively. Whereas I think it's interesting because I think the financial planning is going in, they're going in opposite directions, where the profession of law, that kudos of it and how selective it was and how elite it was is expanding. Anyone, in my opinion, can go and be a lawyer or a barrister nowadays, and that's fantastic in terms of the accessibility. But it's not making it any less of a profession, but it's more saturated now as well in law. And there's so many more lawyers. I can't remember. I think the last sort of count I saw on the SRA register was something like 60, 70,000. Whereas when you look at financial planners, so it's a lot less. Whereas I think that profession of financial planners, especially with the next generation and new generation, like even a next gen mindset, is that it's just bringing it up to speed so much quicker. And I think we are there. I think there's still more time to go. And I think it might sound bad, but it's the older generation that we're used to those salespeople knocking on the door, that we're used to the commission. Those are the individuals that still have, and rightly so, they still have that perception. But you know, the more that time moves on, the more the generational mindset will change. And as a result, become more professional. We work very closely with solicitors, we work very closely with accountants, but professions, and more and more, I don't think it's going to take, it still will take a bit of time, but I don't think it's going to take a long time.
Yeah. So if we can move on just a little bit, Ryan, we when I was introducing you earlier, I referred to you as an intrapreneur. And like I said, some people in the audience will have heard that term before. Some of us might not. So could you just give us an idea of, first, I mean, let's just introduce it to people. What does that mean? And what difference, in the context of you, what difference have you made to your business when it comes to being an intrapreneur?
Yeah, sure. It's a saying that, to be honest, that I've heard for, say, 5 or 6 years, but I didn't actively go out to become an entrepreneur, I'd say. And it's just sort of come about. But in terms of what it is, I would say it's the best way I'll describe it is just an individual who is typically employed by a company, but adopts a more entrepreneurial mindset, where they don't act like the business owner, but want to sort of think of ways to add value to the business, to improve the business's efficiencies, and just generally make improvements by making either new introductions or changes. So that's what I would sort of describe an intrapreneur as being, have an individual where they can have all these ideas, but also have the security and stability of having that employed role.
And just give us the context of how. So, I mean, you can go into as much detail about how you describe yourself as an entrepreneur if you want to. I know your story of how you changed things, but do you want to just give our audience the kind of idea of what it was that you did, that you can define yourself as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it got to the point where I became quite passionate about cash flow modeling. And that came from a source of books, as well as individuals I knew via NextGen, individuals that I knew locally. And it's something that I felt, you know, we, as a firm, although we did elements of cash flow by sort of Excel spreadsheets, it wasn't a sort of a service that we had. And it wasn't something that we engaged clients with. If anything, it was sort of like we've ran the numbers and it looks good or it doesn't look good. Whereas I love the idea of bringing it more to life. And there's a lot of sort of well-known financial planners around the UK that I think Nick Lincoln refers to the fact that the plan itself is primary and the products are peripheral. And I love that idea in terms of, you know, the cash flow modeling is what brings it to life for clients, where they can engage with it and visually see it. So it got to the point where I became so interested in the cash flow modeling that I started just off my own back in my own time, like sort of taking out trials of all the providers effectively, and just getting more and more interested in it, and just thinking, you know, I can make this into a service that I think existing clients would love, and new clients would sort of, you know, adopt straight away. So I went away, did my research on pricing, demos, all the features, all the integrations, everything like that. And I basically put together a proposition for the directors, and I presented it to them and said, look, it's just immense value. I think they will love it. And not just with that, the particular provider that we went with had the cash flow modeling, but they also had an onboarding facility, which again, I thought was incredibly great for us because it integrated with our back office system. So we could cut out a lot of time. Whereas, like, with all due respect, when we're in a client meeting and we're doing our fact finding, there's not much you can say about a national insurance number. So things like that. So it's getting those hard facts and being able to onboard the client quickly and getting them to do it from their side of the portal to then pull that through. So before the first sort of proper in-depth meeting, I've already got all that information. I've already got all the pension, the insurance information, and I can already identify either sort of pitfalls that we might need to be aware of or things that are going right that they should be proud of effectively. So all that together was just a constant tick, 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 tick. And it was really cost efficient as well. So for the company to try something new, it was just a no-brainer. And to be honest, I sent over the proposition with an email, and I think I got a response from the directors very quickly, like within the day or even sooner. And it was just, yeah, crack on, go for it. And, that was amazing because not only were we now able to provide a different sort of dimension to our service, but I was also looking to basically say to some of my colleagues, look, I'm making the job easier. So clients will now complete the fact find. We can now pull it through to that software. We can then push it over to our back office system. And guess what? We can just upload it and you don't need to rekey any information. Some of them still trying to get used to that, if I'm completely honest. They're like, really? Like, you made that job easier? Like, oh, I don't know about this. It's change. I appreciate that. But it's improving efficiencies and making it look more slicker for the client as well. So win-win.
Yeah, I mean, it's like next level efficiency. I mean, no, initiative, sorry. I mean, it is like next level initiative in terms of the argument against like having initiative and stuff. People, for most employees, shall we say, and I completely understand it, and I've been in this mindset before, which is, why would I change anything if I'm not going to see the benefits of it? I'm not going to see the payouts. Basically, if I'm changing something which kind of a massive change to the business, like you did, like this has made a massive difference to the business. The argument is, of course, that you won't see some of the major payoffs of it because, in most cases, people aren't directors, people don't have a shareholder and stuff like that. Yeah. Whereas if you flip that view, if you flip that mindset and you think of it as, okay, I'm making these massive changes to the business, I'm making a case for me to have more say in the running of the business in the future, and therefore the payoff perhaps is not going to be tomorrow, but in the future, I've got more of a case to see a bigger payoff in the future. Yeah. And if you just flip yourself into that kind of intrapreneur or entrepreneur mindset, it makes a huge difference. Rather than seeing yourself as just an employee, if you see yourself as something which is pivotal to the business, that is making changes to the business, you not only make yourself happier and you feel like you've made a difference, but you also do increase your payoff eventually as well. Yeah. So it's like you said about the win-win situation of cash flow modeling there. It's a win-win situation being an entrepreneur because, as you mentioned there, you can have massive changes to the business and lead it in the direction you want it to go, but also you've got the security of being an employee as well, so you don't have any risks on that side. So I think it's a fantastic thing, and I think a lot of people in the audience and a lot of people in our community would probably define them as entrepreneurs. They just maybe don't define themselves as entrepreneurs just yet.
Yeah,
welcome absolutely. At one point. I hope, like, by the way, anyone in the audience who's getting annoyed at me the way I'm describing, I'm pronouncing that word. I don't really know how to pronounce it, to be honest. Even with entrepreneur, a lot of people that pronounce it differently and things. So I'm just going with my best shot. So apologies if every time I say it you cringe. But if there is anyone in the audience who's thinking about kind of, unleashing it, I know you mentioned that you didn't kind of actively go and do it. It just kind of came along. What advice would you give them if they think, I think I've got the ideas to go on and do this as well? What would you say to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I would probably start by saying anyone can do it. It's just a change of mindset. I'd also say find something that you're passionate about and that you feel that it's, first of all, it's passion, because that's what's going to drive you to do the things out of hours and get interested in it and look at it. And then second of all, it's the passion, but it's also the value. What value is your passion going to add to your business? Because that value is what the directors need to see and what they're going to effectively look at and go, great idea, go for it. And so, yeah, passion and value would be the really big things there. I think as well, I think it's fair to say that some people may be thinking on the podcast as well, like, well, my employer isn't like that. And you do have to have an employer which is open-minded. I'm lucky enough to have an employer where I get given a very long leash. And, these are like, as I said in Manchester, it was just like, I've got 10 ideas. Not all 10 of these ideas are going to be, yes, absolutely right. Yes, absolutely right. Yeah, I've introduced cash flow. Yes, I've tried to get Calendly on board as well, just to create like better efficiencies. And yeah, some of these ideas are brilliant, but there's some ideas as well that just fall by the wayside and may come back later. And one of those was DocuSign, for example. So it's one of those things as well, that if you have an employer that's willing to support you, especially if you're doing outside of work, as an employer, I would think I'd be seeing like, this person really wants to add value to my business. They're not looking to take over my business, but by gosh, I've got to keep hold of these individuals here, because that's going to be someone that's going to drive value and has that that interest in making a better business and a better service. And that's something you really don't want to lose.
But even still, I mean, you said they're not looking to take over my business. I mean, we know that. I mean, the percentage is ridiculous of how many financial planning firms don't have a succession plan in place.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a perfect succession plan. You've literally got someone in your business who is showing all the qualities and all the things that you need to be a proper leader.
Yeah.
Give all your time and effort. If I owned a financial planning business and someone was coming up with these ideas and showing that level of initiative, I mean, like you said, you've got to keep them, but you've also got to keep that kind of that mentality going.
Yes.
Feed that mentality of changing things and innovating and all that kind of stuff, because that is the mentality you need to lead. So it's fantastic. I mean, as well, I think you mentioned there about the value point. I think also crucial in this is the presentation of it. So you mentioned there that you kind of proposed it to your directors. It's very easy nowadays to present something. I mean, there's literally, I mean, I'm a massive fan of Canva, as probably a lot of people know. It's free. You can create a pitch deck in there in maybe 10-15 minutes, and all the templates are already outlined for you. If you want to use them, you can start from scratch if you want to. But literally, you can have a pitch deck of something, even if it's something as simple as cash flow, why we should use cash flow modeling in our business. A pitch deck, 6 slides or something like that, of the benefits of using it. Send it to your directors, see what they think. Even that is next level initiative that they just don't see from majority of people. It can make a huge difference, not only to your career, but to the business as well. So yeah, massive. Let's move on from intrapreneurship a little bit and talk about, because you mentioned there about being passionate about something, but I know that you're very passionate about financial planning. And you can feel it when I mean, I've seen you speak on stage, so I know that the passion comes through when you're talking, but you can also feel it when you're talking to you, even through Zoom. It's amazing when you meet someone who's proper passionate about financial planning. It shines through. I guess, can you tell us what it means to you? Because I know that your perspective has probably changed since you came into financial planning. So what you thought financial planning was going to be is probably a little bit different to what it actually is.
Yeah.
In a good way, by the way. So can you just describe what financial planning means to you?
Absolutely. I definitely matured over the 5 years as well, I'd say, in my mindset, because I came in, again, I mentioned the kudos of being a solicitor. And then all of a sudden it was a family friend, actually, that sort of I got introduced into financial planning with as well. And it was those connections and those type of people. And it was a kudos of being that investment guru who knew where to invest the money and who knew where to get the opportunities and avoid the downfalls and make money. And that's when I entered financial planning. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what people was going to want me for. And now almost cringe at that mindset because of the maturity throughout those 5 years, where I've gone very much from, we all know, I'm not Mystic May. I don't have a ball behind me, and I can't predict the investment markets. It's all like your human emotion. And yes, you can try and avoid this and take advantage of that. But as we all know, like, if anyone's going to be out there saying they can do that, then I'd probably run. But what we can do is put a plan in place. That's what we can do. And we can base it on you as an individual, your current lifestyle, because ultimately that's what separates every single client coming through, their lifestyle. You can have the richest person in the world walk through the door, and they've got the most extravagant lifestyle and have no money left at the end of their cash flow, or the most modest individual with a very prudent, safe and sensible lifestyle, and they're richer on paper. So why I'm so passionate about planning is because I feel like clients come through with such a misconception, and it's all about investing and it's all about products. And that's so far from the truth, because what we need to see is, what's the car? Where's the car going? Where's the sat nav taking us? And are we on track? And it's all the products which are like the underlying engine, effectively, which is like, all right, okay, that's what we need in order to enforce the plan. But I just want to give people an insight into where they're going, because there's so many people that walk through the door going, I want to retire in 2 years' time, and they can, based on what they want to achieve in retirement. Or I want to get X amount of return a year, 9%, 10%. Well, why do you need that? Let's suss out what you actually need. And then, okay, you actually only need, say, 4 5% a year to live the lifestyle you want. So why put the rest of your money into more risk, at more risk, to try and obtain those larger amounts? Okay, if you've got time, then maybe so. But it's all these conversations, and I just feel like, a lot of clients are just looking for one thing: lifestyle. And they're looking for security, and they're looking for stability, and to know that, should the worst happen, that we're going to be okay. So insurance products or saving pots, etc. That. But just so many people come through the door going, where are you going to invest my money, and how much are you going to return for me? And that's why I get so passionate about it, because in my opinion, that's not financial planning. That's investment management. And that forms an important part of financial planning, but it's not everything. You've got investment management, you've got estate planning, all of that falls under the financial planning sphere for me. And cash flow modeling is at the heart of that. So for me, it's just making sure that people are aware of where they're going, and that they're happy with where they're going, and they know that should the worst happen, they're still, and their family, more importantly, are still going to be okay.
Yeah, that is a mature outlook. No, this is why I asked that question, because I wanted to hear exactly that. I mean, I hope everyone who's listening and maybe watching on YouTube, that you can see and hear that passion that comes through, because it is really, really cool. Kind of on that, if we could go back to 2017, before you started working in financial planning, before you started, coming into this career, if you could go back and tell yourself something, the power of hindsight, and before you started going into financial planning, what do you think that would be?
Before I start going into financial planning, first of all, I'd probably say it's a knowledge journey. You're not going to pass your diploma and know everything. You're not going to pass your diploma and be able to help everyone. It's a continuous journey of knowledge. And, things change, regulations change. So even you might be the most qualified person in the UK, in 10 years' time, a regulation might change, which is going to force you to up your knowledge. You've got the trust registration service. We need to become aware of that, and what the implications and requirements of that is. So yeah, first of all, it's a knowledge journey. It's never going to stop. So don't try and get to the end. It's a journey. Second of all, as well, patience. I'm always one of those guys that I'll hit the ground and I want to run. Whereas sometimes I think one of the directors have been very good in terms of saying, yeah, know where you want to go. I can see that you're bursting through the gate, but let's just take it for a moment and then give it 6 months, and then we're going to get there, just so that everything else from the firm can fall in place. They know I'm ready to go and they want me there. But it's just a case of other things needed to fall into place as well. With by moving out of the power planning team, for example, we needed to make sure that there was enough power planning support there as well, with me gone. So it's things like that, really. So a bit of patience at times, and just Just be yourself as well. I think sometimes this is a people business, and people relate to people. And there's a lot of people, I believe, have an infectious likability about themselves. It's just uncovering that and being yourself. I think sometimes new advisors, and I was definitely one of these individuals as well, like everybody else probably, going into the meeting, using all this jargon, trying to prove what I knew because these clients were older than me. I've been used to dealing with clients older than me for a long time with their wills and lasting powers of attorney, but all of a sudden you're dealing with their money, and money can be really, really personal. And then it's also, well, why should I trust you? You're 33 years old, and why should I trust you with my money? Now, I'm more comfortable with that now, absolutely. I know I've done my exams, and I know that I'm working on more, and I know that I've got experience. But at the start of it, you just want to prove your worth. And that's why now, rather than talking about like the MPAA or the money purchase annual allowance in terms of what that is, I try and explain it in terms of when I explain cash flow, like a car, like a sat nav, and that you need your annual MOT, and that's your full planning review. So it's making things relatable. And as a golfer as well, I tend to attract a lot of individuals interested in golf. So the fundamentals of golf is really important, and so is the fundamentals of financial planning, aka get your will done, get protection in place, relatable. So yeah, I would say that knowledge journey, relatability, and patience.
Yeah, I would on that kind of jargon point at the end there. I think sometimes you do just have to use jargony words like money purchase annual allowance, blah 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 blah, all that kind of bollocks.
Yeah.
But like the difference is that rather than forcing yourself to say things like that because you want to sound knowledgeable,
yes.
Wait until someone asks you.
Yes.
They don't know what it is, so therefore don't confuse them by bringing it up without them asking. If they ask you about it, tell them what you know about it. And by the way, it's completely fine. And I didn't know this when I first started working in financial planning as well. It's completely fine to say, I'm going to have to look that up because I don't want to give you a wrong answer.
100%.
That's absolutely fine. We feel so much pressure to want to know the answer there and then and give them a solution straight away. Whereas sometimes the best thing to say, even if you know the answer, sometimes the best thing to say is, I'm just going to go away and have a think about that. And I'll let you know in our next call. I'll give you a ring about this in a few days. I'll drop you an email about this in a few days' time. They're going to be absolutely fine with that as long as you give them the right answer.
Absolutely.
It's like, that's just common sense. But all these things, like you said, it's a knowledge journey. You don't pick that up at the start. I mean, it takes being in client meetings, and you don't get taught that kind of stuff in exams either. No. You get taught the technical stuff. And I think that's why that misconception is there, that you need to know everything. Yeah. You're not going to know everything on the first day, and don't put the pressure on yourself to think that you will as well. Yeah. Okay, so I mentioned there that I've seen you talking on stage, and that was because you took part in our Speaker and Influencer program this year, which started. I think it started in January or February time. I mean, time just goes by so fast. And then you spoke in front of our global audience in May, and then you got chosen as one of our top 6 speakers currently, and you spoke at our physical conference in June as well.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Very, very impressive. What I'm more interested in, though, is what you learned about yourself, because some of the things I hear from people when they're going through this program is like it completely changed their mentality. It completely changed. I don't want to sound wishy-washy here, but it did for some people. It completely changes their life in terms of confidence and stuff like that. What did you learn about yourself through the program, and also speaking in front of a global audience and a physical audience as well?
Yeah. To be honest, I learned so much, and like you sort of think to yourself at the time, like, what am I learning? And like, I know I'm learning stuff, but like, how much am I learning, etc. That. And when I look back on it in hindsight, it was incredible for me. Just to have that support from NextGen was very appreciated. But for me, starting out, I realized 3 things. I would say that the first one is probably the importance of having a tribe like NextGen to support you and to facilitate this opportunity. I wouldn't have had that opportunity otherwise, because I know when you've said it, Adam said it, etc. That it's a lot of the same speakers sometimes in these circuits. So without NextGen, I really wouldn't have had the opportunity. So it's important to align yourself with a tribe that can facilitate that, as well as just encourage you to be a better planner, better person. The second thing as well was accountability. Those people who were in that accountability group, where there was effectively, I would say, 7, 8 of us in this group, where we met every single week. You know who you are if you're listening as well, and thank you for your support. But yeah, we met every single week, and to be honest, it's very easy in our jobs to go, I'm so busy, I'll miss this one. But to be fair, it was things like, right, okay, let's set this title. You need to all set your titles by next week, or you need to write your first paragraph by next week, etc. That. So it had that accountability. So for me, there was no, at the end of it, there was no, oh my God, rush in to put something together. It was very much like, right, I've done a lot of this. Like, there's the skeletons there. I just need to flesh it out a bit more. But it was there. And it was the accountability that helped that as well. And like, there was individuals out there as well that helped me with my title. Farida knows that, and all that sort of stuff. So that was great. But the biggest thing I learned wasn't until the end, right at the end. And it was the biggest annoyance, and it was the biggest thing I learned. And you know exactly what I'm on about now. But looking back on it, I'm actually very proud about it. And so when I was in Manchester on the stage in front of 250 people, I'd done the virtual conference without any prompts, no cards, nothing, and smashed it. Really happy with that. And then I practiced for the in-person conference at Manchester, practice, 50 times. It was in my head. I didn't need any cards, didn't need any prompts. And I went along on the day and I thought, should I take some cards? Should I take some prompts? No, I want to do it completely freestanding. This is an in-person conference. These people have paid tickets to come, and I want to give them a show effectively. And I knew it was all in my head. Got there, still feeling excited, still feeling confident, weirdly excited, because I thought I'd be sort of, very, very worried. But I wasn't. Got on stage, first 5 minutes, 10-minute talk, in front of 250 people, first 5 minutes, smashed it. Then all of a sudden, I went blank. You know that 250 people that was listening to me knew that, but I haven't spoken about this publicly before. So it was only us guys that really knew about it. And as you know, I think I mentioned to you as well, it felt like 50 seconds up there. But actually, when I went back over the video, that Hearing kindly recorded for me and I critiqued it, it was actually only 8 seconds. And that 8 seconds felt like 50 seconds. And I was in that 8 seconds, you can only imagine what was going through my head. 250 people looking at you. Why have you done this? You've practiced it and it was solid every single time. And all of a sudden, you've just gone blank. But something inside me really sort of just, because I didn't have a lot of time to think about it, something inside me said, nope, not today. I was back in the room after 8 seconds, and the remainder of that talk was just as good as the start of it. And I was very proud. Saying that, I walked off stage, looked at Rohan, smiled at him, happy-go-lucky. I was fuming inside that I'd had that trip up. But at that time, it didn't take long for me really to look back on it with the amount of support. Some people came up, so they didn't even notice it. Some people came up and said, yeah, they noticed it. Everybody was willing me on. And also some people were saying they loved it. They loved the fact that I acknowledged it at the end as well, to say, oh, glad I got myself back on track, because they were like, that made you human. And you know what, when I look back on it in hindsight, I look back and I go, yeah, I've spoken for 250 people. I also went completely blank in front of 250 people, and I brought it back. I effectively got a boulder thrown at me on an obstacle, and I karate chopped it in half. So yeah, I was very proud of that resilience. So that's me for this Speaker and Influencer program.
That's this is one of the biggest fears for a lot of people of why they fear public speaking so much, is that kind of forgetting everything on stage and just going blank or something like that. But you never ever hear of anyone who does it and then says, oh my God, that was the worst moment of my life or anything like that. Like, don't get me wrong, you were fuming and I could tell you were, but it's turned into a positive thing, because now you can show, you prove to yourself that you're resilient, and that if anything like that happens ever again, you can go back to that moment and think, okay, well, what did I do in that moment and how did I get myself back on track? You probably don't even know what you did in that moment. You probably just got back on track again, and anyway, it's absolutely fine. But the thing is that now you know, it's almost like a superpower. It's almost like you know that whatever happens when you're speaking in front of an audience or anything like that, you'll be able to get yourself back on track again because you've done it before. And once you've got rid of that fear in your head, you can do pretty much anything. You can talk about anything. I think one of the fears as well that a lot of people have is, what am I going to talk about? And for you, you talked about this, you talked about what we've been talking about today about entrepreneurship and, kind of using initiative and stuff like that. And a lot of people assume that you have to talk about something like really revolutionary, or you have to talk about something like outside of yourself, or something to do with financial planning. There was no one who talked about anything to do with finance or pensions or investments or anything on the day. It was all just personal stories with, turning their personal stories into how the audience can use them in their lives. And that's the recipe for a great talk. So anyone who wants to get involved, hopefully what Ryan has just said there spurs you on. And we'll be doing another one early next year, and the conference next year is going to be even bigger as well. So look out for that when it comes out. We're getting near the end now, Ryan, and I'm going to ask you the same questions that we ask every single person who comes on the podcast. And the first of those is the most interesting one, because it always gives a different answer for everyone who I ask. So when we think of financial planning, something you're very passionate about, obviously, and we look 10 years ago, it looks very different to how it looks today. Not vastly different, but like in terms of things that have moved on, it definitely has. But when we think of the next 10 years, so the next decade, what are you most excited to see in financial planning over the course of that period?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people mention improvements in technology and software, etc., like that, to make processes more efficient. And I think they're completely right in saying that. I'm looking forward to making that side easier and more efficient, so that I can spend more time with the people, which is ultimately what I enjoy the most. I think I'm also very excited to say, and I don't know whether personally this will, I can do my best to sort of help, but I think it's probably down to more of the large conglomerates in terms of trying to plug that advice gap as well, for individuals that, and I think there's things out there and people are out there sort of making up, sort of doing these initiatives. But there's sometimes where I want to see individuals that may feel that I don't have a lot of assets behind me, and but I still need advice, or I still need sort of help with cash flow, etc. like that. And some sort of advisors will look at them and go, well, with all due respect, it's not viable commercially for the business. And I can understand that as well. They're a business, but at the same time, these people need help. And I would definitely always describe me as a man of the people. I like that's the kind of thing that I feel that's important. So, am I looking to start or make a large conglomerate? No, I think that's sort of what these guys need to be doing and are working on. But at the same time, what can I do? And as maybe Ryan may have Sound Financial or even smaller firms, and that's pro bono. And I'd like to see more people doing that. Now, I know there's advisors can often get scared about giving pro bono advice because you're effectively giving advice for no money. But like cash flow modeling isn't regulated, so help people with debt management, help people with cash flow, etc. like that. Stuff like protection, getting their will sorted and all that sort of stuff. People will really appreciate that, because I'll walk into a garage, I don't have a clue what I'm looking at in terms of a car engine, but I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to financial planning. So there's a lot of people in those shoes where they just are fearful, thinking to themselves, well, I haven't got a lot of money, who wants to talk to me? And then second of all, I don't have a clue what I should be doing or thinking about. And it's that sort of fear of being not wanted. And that's what I'd like to see more in the next 10 years, is more people doing pro bono, and it doesn't need to be regulated advice. That doesn't have to be that. There's more stuff you can do to help, but also the larger conglomerates plugging that regulated advice sort of aspect as well.
It's really good. Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that you just said there. I think a lot of people who asked that question too said pretty much the same things as well. It's when it comes to finances and money, it's different to other things like cars, for instance, in that money is absolutely crucial to every single aspect of life. So therefore, there's more of an argument to everyone having accessibility to good financial advice than advice around cars and stuff like that, because money is absolutely central to most of our lives, but a lot of us don't have a clue what we're doing with it. So just imagine the changes that we could make to society if everyone had a little bit more financial education or a little bit more financial capability. It would be huge.
I also would like to talk about more in schools as well, and make it more interesting for them in schools. I know that there's some initiatives out there that make it that they do that, But sometimes like, we've got to remember these are 16 and 17, 18-year-olds. They want to look cool in front of their mates. And like if they're talking about like playing maybe a board game or something like that, or playing a game, is that necessarily like, do you want to be seen doing that in school? I know in my school, certainly not. In my secondary school. So make it interesting, make it cool. Investments is interesting for some people. Making money is interesting for some people, and helping others, people are really passionate about. So yeah, try and make it a bit cooler, I'd say.
Yeah, even something like compound interest, for instance. I mean, we know the benefits of investing early, but a lot of people, when I describe that to them, or when I tell them, like my friends, for instance, they're blown away by it. But so if you could tell kids when they're at school, if you start investing at this age compared to this age, even not even investing, don't say the word investing, just say if you start putting money away at this age and using it properly, this is what you could have by a certain age. They're like, whoa, man, that's amazing, because they'd never have seen those kind of sums of money before.
Yeah.
So even little tiny changes like that can have a huge difference on the show. So we also like to ask all of our guests for a book or a piece of content that has helped them in their career so far. I widened it out from books because personally I don't read books. And also I think you can get a lot from other sources nowadays. You know, there's podcasts like ours, for instance. There's, you know, YouTube channels which offer loads and loads of great insights and stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be a book, but what would you recommend our audience consume that has really helped you?
I've got a lot, to be honest, so much. But if I have to single thing out, in terms of one book, sort of personal development book, easy classic is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I know Dan Martin mentioned it. He said he probably reads it once a year. It's just a great book in terms of remembering how to deal with people, and really helped me with when I've sort of gone on to have my own team effectively now, and remember, you know, use people's names and remember what they're interested in and ask them about that. Easy stuff, but sometimes I think we do it all the time with clients, but we don't necessarily do it with colleagues. Things like that. From a client perspective and a new person entering the industry, the book that changed me slightly was Paul Armson's book Enough, because that's what sort of gave me the whole lifestyle financial planning sort of dimension, as opposed to products. So that was great. I would definitely, and I know that I'm a member and all that sort of stuff, but join NextGen. You know, great people. We're all mentoring each other effectively, and it's just paying it forward an immense amount of value, and definitely the best decision. I've said it before, but it's definitely the best decision I've made in terms of pushing me on that extra level. And if you're trying to move the needle by 1%, well, NextGen and move it by 50, whatever. So that I really enjoy the Brett Davidson stuff as well that he sends through in terms of his emails. Some really great content there for business owners. And then, like, you know, just anything YouTube wise, you can just have an idea and go, okay, how can I do this better? Or how can I refer better? Or how can I get communicate better? There's loads of content on YouTube nowadays. And sometimes you'll just pick up a little gem. I'm also a very big fan of podcasts as well. So anything like that.
Loads for us there, mate.
There you go.
I think that's probably the most that that anyone has ever recommended on this podcast.
I'm always looking for something.
Well, you do. I think you describe yourself as a sponge, don't you? So like that is so true. You're always looking for something and always taking stuff in as well, which is, you know, one of the reasons that you've used that initiative and gone forward as well, because you've picked all this stuff up as well. So great stuff. Well, I think we'll bring it to a close there. But I just want to say a massive thank you to you, Ryan. It's been a really, really good episode today. So we always like to give the last word to our guests to say thank you for coming on the podcast. So just tell us where we can find you, where we can connect with you, and just leave us with any last thoughts as well.
Absolutely. NextGen platform I'm on, so any NextGeners connect with me through there. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I do have Facebook and all that sort of stuff, but LinkedIn I check regularly as well. So if you're looking for that, LinkedIn's probably the best way. Final thoughts, very grateful to you, Dan and NextGen, for giving me this opportunity again. And find something you're passionate about. My granddad always used to say to me, find a job you enjoy and you never really work a day in your life. He did make me believe that he made that saying up, but I believe it wasn't him. It was Twain, I believe. So, but yeah, when I came to find that out, it was a revelation. Yes, find something you enjoy and you'll never work a day in your life.
And that's from the great philosopher, Ryan May's granddad.
Yeah, he's amazing. So he would absolutely love the thing that I'm now quoting him on a podcast. And and leaving him with the final word. His head would be massive.
Great stuff. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. So that was Ryan May from Sound Financial Management on the Next Gen Planners podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, it is available on all platforms. So it's available on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and our website, which is nextgenplanners.co.uk. And you'll find more information about our training contract, advice stack, and our amazing community, of which Ryan is a member, full of interesting, amazing people, influential people who are making a difference to financial planning every single day. And you can join that for just £12.90 plus VAT per month. And there's loads of great content in there. And of course, our conference, which is coming up in 2023, which will, as the time of we're recording this podcast, we've released very, very little information on. Hopefully, by the time this podcast is released, we'll have released more information on that. So you can check that out on our website as well. And we are on all the social media channels. So on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So please go and give us a follow on all of those. And the final thing is to just, if you can, please leave us a rate and a review. It really does help us grow the podcast and take it to new extremes. We're creeping up the careers charts on Apple Podcasts, which is just ridiculous. So if you guys can continue listening, continue just rating and reviewing, it massively helps us get this out there. So thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to Ryan for joining us on today's podcast, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.